Welcome to the I Get It Show, a creatively fun discussion focused on the pursuit of meaningful daily life. With a wide variety of topics, insights through celebrations, influencer interviews, and everyday life journey interactions. Inspiring you to pursue passionate happiness and discovering the simple aha moments in life that serve to power the journey of purpose. And now your hosts for the I Get It Show, Jeff Armour and Lindsay Lott.
You have arrived at the I Get It Show, brought to you by I Get It Media. I'm your host, Jeff Armour, and I am joined, as always, by my spirited co-host and queen of new media, Lindsay Lott. Lindsay, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing awesome. Thanks for joining.
Excited to be here.
Kind of part of your show. I guess it makes sense that you're here. Well done. By the way, we're also going to be joined a little later in the podcast by our show moderator. His name is Be Wise. He'll chime in into our discussion with feedback about what he and possibly you, the listener, are hearing. So as a reminder, the I Get It Show is intended to be witty and insightful. Okay. Lindsay, witty and insightful conversations about really, next to nothing, right? Discussing how our daily lives are influenced by just about everything. So today's topic, as we were discussing, what should we talk about that's going to be about nothing? So we came up with a really interesting topic. Can you remind the audience today what our topic is?
Yes, I can. Today we are going to be discussing pain and whether or not pain is temporary.
Is pain temporary? We came up with this discussion, so it was interesting because have you ever been in a situation where people are always saying like random statements to you? And then either they say it because they don't want to be responsible for the outcome, or it's just something you say because you think you need to say something. There are so many of them, right? Like if someone says to you, I don't want to offend you, but something like that, right? And so when someone says, you're going through something or hurting about something, then people go, don't worry, honey. And that's always nice when they tell you that, right?
Right.
Don't worry, honey. Pain is just temporary. Right. Mm-hmm. And so what in the world are people thinking when they're saying something like that to us? What do you think?
I think when somebody says something like that to us, or when they say anything when we're in a painful situation, it's just their attempt to calm us down, not have to necessarily see us suffering or see us hurting.
Right. So you got some sort of pain and you know what you need to do. And it's always helpful. Maybe Be Wise can chime in this a little later. I love it when someone says to me, hey, you know what you need to do? Like a Taylor Swift comment, right? You know what you need to do? You need to calm down. Mm-hmm. I've always found when someone tells me to calm down, there's some sort of a trigger that says, I probably need to ramp this up.
I agree, 100%.
You ever felt that way?
Yes.
Right. So when someone says, hey, you know what? I know you're going through something, right? But don't worry, it's only temporary. Mm-hmm. How should we maybe help people understand how to better approach that?
Mm-hmm. Rather than saying pain is temporary to somebody that's hurting. Right. I think the best way to possibly comfort somebody that's in pain or help somebody that's in pain is to not say anything at all. Because I think there's a lot of times something that helps somebody else is not helpful for me.
Yeah.
I have a friend that's dealing with a lot of medical issues right now. And when I talk to him, one of his ways of pulling himself out of pain is to say, yeah, but there's like children that have cancer, or there's people that have a lot worse than me.
Interesting. Some has it worse off.
But that's helpful for him. Like he tells himself that pulls him out of his pain, and then he's able to go on. I've had that said to me before, and it's not helpful to me at all. It makes me feel like I'm not entitled to my feelings, or feel guilty for having the feelings I'm having about the painful situation. So I think it's really not really about what we say or what we feel like would be the right thing to say to somebody that's in pain, but to possibly just step in with them and allow them to lead.
And there's so many different types of pain or discomfort, right? And I think that for us to be better as a community, better in our world around us, knowing how to overcome things that are uncomfortable, right? And often people don't like to embrace what's uncomfortable, right? And if pain is happening to me and someone says to me, hey, don't worry, this is only temporary, when that person's not going through it, right? How do I reconcile that? Because then I feel like that I need to make them feel better about their lack of effort in making me feel better, right? Have you ever felt that way? Is it just me? Is it just some weird, strange thing that goes on for me?
No, I could relate to that. However,
there's always a however. Have you noticed that? There's always a however. Never get it right. Go ahead.
Right or wrong, my initial reaction to when I'm dealing with any pain is to kind of just put up my walls and have boundaries and push people away and just deal with it on my own.
Yeah. So there's a rule I have when I go anywhere, right? And you run into somebody that maybe you haven't seen in a while, or maybe, you know, kind of an acquaintance. Let's say you're at the store, right? And you go down an aisle, right? And you see somebody. The proper process is for someone to go, hey, how are you? Right. And then that person's supposed, this is the rules. I don't make the rules. I'm just telling you the way the rules are. Right. And then they say to you, I'm fine. How are you? Right. And then you're supposed to say, I'm fine. And we all move along to do the rest of our shopping. But every once in a while, you run into that person that when you ask them how they're doing, they actually start to tell you.
The audacity.
Right. Right. It makes it so uncomfortable. In fact, now I feel more pain. Right. Now that I've made awkward eye contact. Yeah. Right. So there's emotional pain, there's physical pain, there's mental pain. Sometimes there's pain that doesn't really even exist. Like I have had times in my life where I think, am I in pain or am I not in pain? Like a ghost pain. And then later I'm like, maybe I wasn't in pain at all. So how do we can we be better about integrating with people on when they're going through something to encourage them at the same time, try to be less, I don't know, condescending in our process? What do you think?
To encourage them when they're in their pain without being condescending. Yeah. Huh? No, I think it's tricky. Like I said, I think it's tricky because I think we're all so unique and all so different. And we, like you and I could go through this exact same experience, right? And you feel differently about it and I feel differently about it. Our level of pain is different, you know? So it's tricky to know exactly how to necessarily help somebody, but I think we can't assume that we know.
Yeah. So when you're dealing with somebody's hurting in whatever direction they are, you know, sometimes they just don't want to talk to anybody. That's kind of the way you're saying you are, right? You're like, well, I'm just going to circle the wagons and kind of leave me alone and hopefully I'll figure this out, right? And then there are others that when they are going through something and no one actually engages with them, they feel isolated even more painful, and it causes them to make even poor decisions based on that, right? So how do we determine which direction to go for each person?
Well, I did say that I isolate, right, myself when I'm going through painful situations. However, that's a lonely place to be. So even though that's my natural inclination, knowing that I have support or people that love me and are there if I want them to be or allow them to be is beneficial and helpful. And I like knowing that at the very least, whether or not I'm ready to invite them in or to allow them to be part of that.
So what emotion, I'm curious what emotions you feel, because I know that I have and we're different, right? So I'm wondering what emotions you feel when someone goes, oh, it's okay. This too shall pass. What does that say to you? Is it believable?
Depends on who says it to me.
Oh, really? So it depends on depends on the source. Interesting. Okay.
It kind of does.
I see.
I feel like somebody that has been privy to past experiences that I've been through and can maybe pull from some of those experiences, that's more meaningful to me than somebody that doesn't know anything. And that's the first thought that goes through my mind when they say it is, you don't know anything. Yeah.
Well, and what I take from that comment is it's really helpful to have people in our lives that continue to bring up our history, our past, right? That's so much fun. Anyway, so I love that, right? I love when that happens. And so for when you are in this place where someone is saying to you that it depends on who that person is, if it's just a random, say, acquaintance, it doesn't have the same meaning. Is that what you mean? Right.
I guess it would depend.
All the circumstances are different, right? Yeah. So if we were to engage each other, because I think we're spending the time talking about, because I think there's two sides to it, right? First is the one going through whatever they're going through, right? And the other side is the person that's trying to figure out how to help the person that's going through, right? So there's pain and there's comfort and what levels we do that, right? And so when I think that we often have ourselves in a place where we like to say things to people to meet our obligation as if we acknowledged it, right? But let's just move along, kind of like the thing at the grocery store.
Kind of like, let me know if you need anything.
Right. Yeah. Right? I love that.
Who's really going to ever let you know
exactly.
If you need anything?
3 days later, you call up and you go, I said, what? I never told you I would get you anything, right?
No, that's just like what you say. It almost just like rolls off your tongue automatically.
What in the world are we thinking?
I don't know.
Right. So when we're in our journey together, right. And our show is part of this. Part of our show is to say, hey, how do we tackle some of the different parts of what people say and do. And it seems like nothing in our life, just like the thing I told you about the grocery store. How many times, hundreds of times over the year, you're saying, hey, how are you doing? I'm fine. I'm doing blah, blah, and that's just the way we do it. But then there's always that thing that stops and you go, what did I just do? How did I just make that? What did I really mean that? And because we say things out of obligation, am I really concerned about what you're going through to the extent of I'm willing to help, whatever that looks like?
Right.
And that's easier to do, you say, than if someone knows you as opposed to somebody that doesn't know you very well. Is that true?
I would assume so. It seems like that's how it goes usually.
Interesting. So, so part of our show is that we start talking about something, right? And we always need like a third party sometimes. Sometimes, just so the listener knows, there are occasions when Lindsay and I can get into a discussion that is more direct, right? And so sometimes we need a third party, a referee, right? To sometimes get in the middle and say, here's what I'm hearing, here's what I'm thinking, and maybe this is an alternate view.
Right.
So that's why we have as part of our show, a show moderator. His name is B Wise. We love to bring him in. So this is the part I think where he can come in and kind of, he's kind of like wanting to set us straight. So we'll see what that looks like. So let's bring him in. B Wise, join us.
Well, hello there. First, let me say you're wise to come to me. I think this is an excellent topic. This is a really, really good topic because so many people are currently in pain, and there are so many people that have experienced pain. In fact, all of us have experienced pain from time to time. So I think it's really good topic that we can light on here and try to help some people think it through just a little bit. And I think Lindsay has brought an excellent point of view from a pain perspective, that we've defined pain and how she sees it, and how when a comforter comes to her and says pain is temporary or whatever comforting words, she takes it in a different way. She looks at the person giving her that and will accept it as it's intended. So I think that it's important that we follow along with what Jeff is saying, that there really are two sides to it.
It's my favorite part so far of your feedback.
Excellent. Is it the pain portion of the program, or do you find yourself more the comforter of the program? Do you do everything within your power to avoid pain and only seek the pleasure things? And so sometimes you'll just ignore the pain just in order to not have to experience it. And so if you're that person, then maybe the comforting words mean absolutely nothing. And then you do what Jeff has said, is that now you feel obligated to try to make them feel comfortable. And so it really is a dynamic of pain and comfort. Which side of that argument are you currently falling on? And then how do you navigate those waters? And so I think we're off to a great start.
So with the 30 seconds we have left in your segment, just curious about, where everybody experiences pain, right? So how would you best lean into it? Is it better for us to focus on what's ailing us or focusing on what heals us?
Well, that's a great question. And what I would say to that is you first have to define the pain. Are we talking about a physical pain, a broken bone, a sprained ankle? Or are we talking about an emotional pain where something tragic has happened to you, someone's died, or maybe it's a breakup, maybe it's a relational breakup and you're dealing with that. So I think it's important that we define what that pain is.
So when we define it, Lindsay, is what Brian is saying. And thank you, Brian, for joining us. We'll come back to you in a few minutes. So what Brian's saying is now we need to define what it is. So when we look at somebody and we're going to respond to them in a certain way, do you feel that people fail to kind of assess where that actual person is, that it's more about me and how I'm going to feel in this moment rather than how the other person's going to feel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Brian made a lot of good points. And I was
shocked by it as well.
What came to my mind is that when we try to comfort somebody in pain, tell them pain is temporary or whatever it is, we tell them to minimize whatever they're feeling. I almost feel like it does them a disservice because I think pain has such a negative connotation in our society, and nobody wants to seek out pain. However, life has a way of just showing up with
right.
pain anyways. But a lot of times our attempts to comfort removes the opportunity that pain has brought to them for their lives, right? Because pain doesn't just show up to needlessly hurt us, but perhaps we could shift our perspective and see pain as pointing us in directions in our lives, relationships, in ourselves, whatever it is that needs focus and attention and maybe even changed, right?
Right. Well, that's what I was going to wonder about in the discussion with both of you was, so pain is often a guide, right? It's something is amiss, right? That needs to be corrected in some way. So pain isn't just commonly happens. It means something is going on, whether it's emotional, physical, or whatever that is. Pain is a signal that's something else. And often, do you feel like that maybe we are more concerned about treating the pain than it is the actual cause?
Right. Yeah. I think in our society, it is very much like just, I don't want to see that person in pain. So just cover up the symptoms, look happy, put your smile on, rather than getting to the core, the issue that really is causing the pain and really needs to be addressed. And I think even personally, it's a lot easier for us to just avoid that pain, ignore that pain, carry on, push through, distract ourselves, whatever it might be. But that pain remains unless we get to the source of it. Yeah.
So I know there are times, especially when you're going through discouraging moments in life, right? You actually like to hold on to your pain. There's a weird kind of comfort in holding on to your pain, right? And obviously that doesn't help you overcome it because it only facilitates a longer, broader approach. But sometimes the treatment of the pain, that's why I'm wondering, like, we both know lots of people that have been addicted to things, and often addictions come from treating something that is amiss in our lives. So we treat the symptom instead of what the real issue is, right? And so for you, when you are looking at, if I had something going on with me, how would you approach that with me? How would you, because sometimes maybe it's just, I don't even know what to say, so I don't say anything, which is that better or worse?
To not say anything?
Yeah.
If I were being the comforter in the situation, you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, I think you have it in you. You should maybe give it a try.
Try to comfort you?
Anybody really for that matter.
Oh, it's just anybody.
Just give it a go. Yeah, just try it on and see what happens.
I think, like I said, the best approach is to just step in it, be willing to step in it with you, not be afraid of getting into that, even if it causes us pain, meaning not trying to rescue you, not trying to help you avoid it or be distracted, but just leaning into it with you and offering what you might need. But I think we have to let the person in pain kind of lead that for us.
But what if they don't know?
And if I
don't know what I need? I mean, there are so many people. I need something, but I don't know what it is. But I'll know it when I get it. So I need you to figure out what that is. That's a really hard place to be.
It is, but I think that when you're trying to comfort somebody, you just have to be there. Just have to show up, right? And a lot of times you'll know what they need, or they'll be able to identify what they need at that time.
And do you think that men and women are different in this way? Like, I know that there are times when someone who's like, two men can get together, and the comfort is they literally can sit in the same room, maybe watch a game or something else, and literally say 15 words to each other the whole time and feel better. Right. And women aren't necessarily that way.
Typically not. No. But yeah, I do.
if we had two women sit in a room for a couple of hours and only say 15 words, probably there's going to be some sort of serious altercation happening in the parking lot. Is that true?
That is true. That is true.
Okay.
But I think there is like just a comfort in having someone by your side, whether or not words are exchanged or not. I really do.
So just being present is significant, is what you're saying.
I think so.
Yeah. And so that is probably one of the bigger challenges, right? Is that how do we be present with somebody without feeling awkward, without feeling like we have to say something, have to do something? I just think there's this place where and I think that's a good point for you, because I think there's just the weird thing that we do as humans is often we mean well by saying things that make things worse.
Right.
Right. And one of those things that says all the time is, hey, don't worry, pain is temporary.
Right. That's true.
Right. How does that help?
I don't know that it always does. But one thing I wanted to go back on that you had said, that when we're in pain, a painful situation, often the way out of that pain is also painful, right?
Yeah.
Like we can maybe discover what is the source of that pain and know what we need to do to remove ourselves from that pain. But that whole process is a whole other type of painful that we have to be willing to go through to ultimately be free from the pain.
So many things, right? There's so many ways to go about it. And certainly in our short form podcast, it's hard to go through all the different steps, right? But it's just good to have a conversation about, hey, how can we maybe be more mindful and thoughtful in the way we interact with each other? How much better the world would be. And this is just one of those areas. So I'm curious, bring in Be Wise again. Be Wise has been listening to our ramblings. And so now that we've circled back around to it, Brian, you got any additions?
I do, actually. I mean, this is, like I mentioned at the top of my segment, this is a great topic. In fact, one could even say that it's a painful topic, because when you have to sit and define what your pain is and how, what it is that is currently happening to you, and then how you're going to go ahead and deal with it. And are you going to deal with it by ignoring it? Are you going to deal with it by going into your own little space? Are you going to seek therapy from a professional? How are you going to define that particular pain? And I think you both have touched on that very well. Then from a comforting standpoint, and I think Lindsay had mentioned that she has to consider the source of the comfort before she will accept the comfort as a loving and supporting gesture. From a comforter standpoint, you are just trying to lend support to the person in pain. You recognize their pain. Sometimes you can deal with, or you can understand the kind of pain they're in. Sometimes you have no idea of what kind of pain they're going through. And so support and love and comfort is the best you can offer. And sometimes that's with words. Sometimes that's just with being next to them. Sometimes that's with whatever. I mean, just spending time with them or buying them a nice gift. I don't know, a bottle of wine, perhaps.
Well, I think that would be helpful for me if there was more gift giving. Lindsay, perhaps give that some thought in the future.
Make a note.
But I think those are all great points, Be Wise. Thank you so much for joining us today and adding your input. It's been, one of those things where, again, just opening the topic and conversation of that. But I'm curious, at the end of our podcast, we always want to give each other the opportunity to give some thoughtful feedback, some thoughtful words about the topic. And so I'm curious, and I know I'm sorry that Be Wise didn't refer to you by your proper name, which is Queen of New Media, but we want to make sure that you are able to give your thoughts on it, because I know you have a lot to give. So what are your thoughts finishing up the segment today? Yeah,
there's so much. I guess my thoughts come from more of the person that's in the pain rather than the comforter. But I would, just leave with someone with a challenge, and that's to shift our perspective on pain and learn to make peace with it and recognize that it's not here just to make us miserable. But like you said earlier in the show, a guide, and allow it to guide us to the areas in our lives or relationships or whatever it might be that need to have a little extra care or attention or change or whatever it is, and allow that pain to potentially just push us out of where we no longer belong in our lives.
Yeah, I think the dangerous thing for me, my thoughts are, thanks for asking, Lindsay. My thoughtful words are, that there's a statement that gets said a lot, but it isn't really implemented very well. And it is people grow better together, right? And that we were created for relationship. And the better that we communicate and integrate with each other, the better we are together, and the better that the people around us and the community around us is better, right? And so for you and me, in looking at how do we integrate ourselves into better communication with people in our world, I find that there's just so many different areas where people are looking for solutions and answers, but often the answer is more simple rather than complicated. And it is, I care more about you than maybe you care about yourself in this moment. And for us to be able to say, no matter how long this thing you're going through is, that we will walk through it with you, whatever part that is. And if it means that you and I can solve it together, or I'll walk with you to the place where we find comfort for you, who can help heal you, right? But in our discussions, I want to make sure we're always in a place where we offer opportunity to continue to dialogue. And we want to continue the discussion with you, the viewer, and the listener. So I want you to join us on our social media channels. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. You can find us at I Get It Show. And we'd appreciate your perspective and engagement. Your voice matters to us, and we want to hear from you. So on our next show, by the way, we're going to dive into a new topic that may actually push the boundaries of what you might believe about what to pursue in life. And is happiness what we should be pursuing? And so we'll discuss. So a big thank you to my co-host, Lindsay, and also to our show moderator, B Wise. And in closing, we would be so grateful for your efforts in spreading the word about the I Get It Show. Let's work together to make the world a little better around us each and every day.
You've been listening to The I Get It Show. Witty and insightful conversations about nothing, discussing how our daily lives are influenced by everything. Feel free to reach out. theigetitshow@gmail.com. Like and subscribe on Facebook and YouTube, and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, this has been The I Get It Show. This has been a production from a podcast studio.